Pieces missing everywhere. Samael eyed the orc warily, watching for any sign of treachery. The Guardian had been told that the orcs of Saltmarsh had thrown down their weapons and surrendered. The visitor wasn't armed, but he certainly didn't look like he had given up fighting. Fortunately, his commander would receive the delegation. His job was just to remain vigilant lest these orcs prove as treacherous as their Druge masters. I am Kern Whitefingers. I speak on behalf of our pyroclast, Garl Honor. The orc was tall and dressed in burnished orange robes. Beneath it he wore an intricate, tooled armour piece, a belt and pectoral marked with the images of leaping flames. I am Abinail of the Chantry of the Silver Skull. On behalf of General Barakel, I welcome you in peace to our camp. We have refreshments if you will take them. My scribe stands ready to record your words if you would need them. Samael felt his pride well up inside him, pleased their commander had more than outmatched the visitor's confidence. The orc's eyes narrowed and darted from Ira to Samael and the other guardians, weighing each one up in turn. There was a long, painful pause, almost as if each side was waiting for the other to say something further. But finally he spoke again. Garl has consulted the Lords of Flame, and the portents are auspicious for a meeting on Greenstone Isle at midnight on the first night of the coming solstice. Your empire should send their magicians and their bodyguards to meet the pyroclast there. The orc stopped for a moment and held up his hands, 9 fingers outstretched. The little finger on his left hand was missing. The wound looked fresh and raw. 9. No more, no less. 9. He thrust his hands forward repeatedly, fingers still spread, to add emphasis. If you send 9, then your magicians may talk with our theurgists. Our pyroclast will present the terms for our surrender. Pause was slight, but the change in emphasis was unmissable. Clearly the orc found the word distasteful. Abinail glanced sideways at her scribe and nodded at him. He repeated the messenger's words back to him, reading out what he had written. Kern nodded once to indicate approval, and then turned on his feet and began walking backwards towards the gate, the cataphract supporting him, struggling to keep up with his hurry to leave. What's there to talk about if they're surrendering? Samael voiced the question in his head a little louder than he'd planned. There's a whole lot more to surrendering than just not fighting, Samael, Abinail corrected him. Fortunately, that will be for the General to sort out. Right now, I need a dozen volunteers to take this message to General Barakel. I need people ready to go. Now, I need... The commander was still barking orders, but Saul's hand was already in the air. It was a long run back to the main camp where the army was stationed, but there was no way he was passing up a chance to meet the general. Overview. The Empire have enjoyed a number of crucial victories recently. Triumphs on the battlefield against the Druge in the Malum, and the slavers of Asavea and Rashensgrab. Political triumphs as well. Several nations have abandoned slavery in response to the rise of the Liberty Pact. The cost of these victories has been high, but the Highborn have paid it gladly. Buoyed up by these triumphs and the virtue that underpins them, the Highborn have passed 3 potent mandates, tapping into the surge of pride in these accomplishments. Dare do all. Prejudice against the lineaged, orcs and other sapient people is declining amongst the Highborn. Religious construction in Highborn is being supported by an enthusiastic populace. The Highborn National Assembly has gained 2 new abilities, to support other imperial nations, and to present alternative mandates in their assembly to any mandate in a different National Assembly. Each of the 3 mandates that were put before the Highborn National Assembly passed with greater majority. These mandates have inspired the Highborn people, providing a number of significant benefits. One of them provides the Highborn Assembly with new powers to support their fellow nations, but not everyone approves of these powers. The Urizen Assembly, in particular, scorns any further assistance from their neighbours. At the same time, the Highborn generals are busy helping to rebuild Zenith, supporting the Synod's aim of liberating rather than conquering the Barons, and their virtuous crusade leads to further opportunities for the Assembly. The words of Silas of the Cenotaph have brought a new wave of support for congregations across the nation, providing valuable financial donations as well as increased liao and votes as the ranks of the faithful swell. Perhaps more importantly, there is an interest in construction of new monuments, churches, chapels, and sites devoted to inspiring the faithful to pursue the virtues of the way. This wave of enthusiasm has appeared just in time given the appraisal of Elian Sweetwater, just completed, that lays out a hugely ambitious construction to make Bastion the indisputable centre of the way, throughout the known world. If the Assembly chooses, the citizens of Highguard could easily be persuaded to focus all of their contributions on this one extraordinary commission. The Assembly authorises Olivar of Esther's Sanctum to spread the mandate raised by Lady Josephine of Adina's charge across the nation, encouraging every Highborn citizen to renounce the long history of prejudice the lineage and the Orcs face. It calls for every Highborn to embrace the idea that it is the virtues that bind people of the Empire together. The effects of this mandate are subtle and far-reaching, and they will take time to become apparent. The way the Highborn view the lineaged, the Imperial Orcs, and other sentient creatures is evolving, however. Attitudes are beginning to change, a development that could be influenced by the guidance provided by the Assembly in the seasons ahead. Finally, the mandate enacted by Jared of the Sons of Chorus has helped to remind every Highborn citizen of those close bonds between the 10 nations of the Empire, like one extraordinary family. Of course, siblings argue occasionally. That is to be expected, but they come together in the face of adversity. Highguard's armies have fought shoulder to shoulder with Urizen to turn back the Druge armies in Zenith. They have not flinched from supporting the Navarre as they attack the Valorn and Brokeliand, but there is always more that can be done. Inspired by Jared's words, for the next year the Highborn Assembly could choose to focus their support on a single Imperial nation, seeking ways to provide them with assistance. As a result of this interest in the affairs of their fellow nations, Highguard has the potential to respond to the mandates of other nations, supporting, or opposing them, if the issue resonates with them. These two new abilities are described in A Peerless Kinship and Partner of Greatness in last season's Full of Sacred Sound Wind of Fortune. They remain available until the end of the Winter Solstice 385 YE. Trust your instincts. The Urizen Assembly can make it impossible for the Highborn Assembly to offer any aid to their nation in the near future. Any assembly can enact this mandate, preventing Highguard from offering any aid to their nation in the near future. However, not every nation welcomes the prospect of receiving help and support from Highguard. The Urizen Assembly passed a statement with a greater majority, calling on their citizens to reject Highborn influence. Although the statement seems strange at first glance given how much Highborn blood was spilled to rout the Druge from Zenith, it is very much in line with the traditional beliefs and practices of the Sword Scholars, who have a long history of opposing Highborn spiritual influence. Or perhaps they were simply alarmed by the prospect of the Highborn Assembly taking action to oppose whatever mandates the Urizen Assembly sought to spread. It is not possible for the Urizen Assembly to directly prevent the Highborn Assembly from opposing or supporting the statements and mandates of other national assemblies in the Synod. That's a matter for Highguard, and the Urizen Assembly can't influence the people of Highguard directly any more than the Highborn Assembly can influence the people of Urizen directly. However, they could make it impossible for the Highborn Assembly to provide any meaningful assistance or help to Urizen. The ability of the Highborn Assembly to identify a single nation and try and help and support them with some challenge they are facing depends on the cooperation with the people of that nation. The Urizen Assembly could pass a mandate making that impossible. We will strive, toil, and claim the just rewards of our labour. We need no help from others, and we send named priest with 50 doses of Liao to urge all Urizeni to take pride in our accomplishments and refuse all aid from the Highborn. Example Synod Mandate, Urizen Assembly. If this mandate were enacted with a greater majority, required due to the opposition of the Sword Scholars of Urizen to all mandates, then Highguard would not be able to direct their assembly to help Urizen at any point in the near future. Any statement of principle that calls on Highguard to offer aid or help to Urizen will fail to produce any mandate. Making a clear statement rejecting Highborn influence would also make it easier to rouse people to anger in the future. If the efforts of the Urizen Assembly were stifled by opposition to one of their mandates from the Highborn Assembly. There is currently no indication that other nations wish to refuse the aid of the Highborn, but in theory they could choose to do so. As a result, any nation could submit a similar alternative mandate to their National Assembly, calling on citizens to refuse any aid from Highguard. Screw your courage. The orders of Highborn generals can create opportunities for the National Assembly. The inspirational effects of the Highborn generals in the campaign against the Druge in Urizen have had a profound impact on everyone who serves in the Highborn armies. The clear commitment to engage the enemy in the most virtuous way possible has been widely embraced and adopted wholesale. Thus, any conflict that Highborn armies are involved in will automatically generate an opportunity for their assembly to carry out a mandate. A distant shore, conjunction. A meeting with the Vendari has been arranged for Friday at midnight. With this choice, Barakel of Adina's charge has taken the decision to approach the Vendari. This group of secretive orcs have little contact with the Empire over the years, despite many conflicts the Barons have seen. As a result, they have less reason than some clans to fear or hate the Empire. Their reputation in the Barons is poor, however. They are considered to be entirely self-serving and treacherous, and have switched sides at least once in the past. Their habit of trying to turn every situation to their own advantage means they are not well trusted by the others. Given the Empire's military triumph, it is highly likely that they can be persuaded to switch sides, but it is likely that their loyalties will just revert as quickly as the wind changes. Barakel's efforts have been successful, and a meeting with the Vendari has been arranged. They are not prepared to come to Anvil. They don't trust the Empire enough to accept their hospitality and protection. However, they have exchanged messages with Barakel's scouts and agreed to meet representatives of the Empire at Greenstone Isle, a tiny island a little more than half a mile across that is located in the mouth of Greenstone Estuary in Saltmarsh. The location has been arranged due to the presence of a conjunction of the Sentinel Gate leading to the location on Friday evening of the coming summit. The agreement with the Vendari is for 9 soldiers or magicians to come to the meeting, all of whom must be highborn. The delegation can meet Garl Wana and select members of his coven who act as his advisors. Garl is acknowledged as the leader of the Vendari, who they call their Pyroclast. He is known to be a skilled ritual magician, and it is likely that many of his most trusted ritualists will be present with him. The conjunction is not long, barely 20 minutes in length, so it is unlikely that there will be time for extensive negotiations, but it does present the opportunity for the Empire to make contact with the leadership of the Vendari and get their measure. There is one issue that will have to be considered carefully, however. The agreement with the Vendari is that 9 highborn soldiers and magicians may attend the meeting. However, the conjunction provides the possibility of up to 15 citizens of the Empire to travel to the Greenstone Isle. It will be almost impossible to negotiate with the Vendari if more than 9 highborn citizens travel, but the nature of the Sentinel Gate, the conjunctions it provides, reflect the cruel whims of fate. If that allows for 15 citizens to travel, then there must be something that 15 citizens could possibly achieve that 9 could not. The view of the prognosticators who have experience working with the gate is that this conjunction offers the potential for betrayal. Garl Wana will be there along with his most powerful ritual magicians. They don't understand how the gate works, but they are expecting 9 people to turn up. It won't be easy for them to flee the area, because it's a tiny island surrounded by deep, treacherous waters. The Empire could send an elite military strike force and potentially remove the threat the Vendari's powerful ritual magicians could pose. The Vendari have very few warriors, little that resembles a fighting force, so removing their leadership would throw the Sept into disarray and make it impossible for them to offer any kind of resistance to the Empire's campaigns in the Barrens. The civil service have identified that Barakel of Adina's charge could be the Imperial citizen most responsible for overseeing the conjunction. The general can decide how many people to take and who should go. Salvation. The Highborn Assembly has the opportunity to make peaceful contact with another Baron's faction. In addition to creating this opportunity, the General's orders have inspired the soldiers under their command to demonstrate that salvation is their mission, not annihilation. They've worked hard to show the conquered septs of the Barons that the Empire is here not to slaughter them. As a result of the virtuous approach taken by the Highborn soldiers, there is a chance for the Highborn Assembly to extend the benefits of the previous season's outreach. Let every word you speak carry meaning. We send, named priest, with 25 doses of Liao to make contact with, named sept, of the Barons. Let us find the right question. Example Synod Mandate, Highborn Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, a Highborn priest leading it can attempt to make contact with either the Black Wind, the Karas, or the Montanians, just as the General gave orders to make contact with the Vendari last season. They can't use this opportunity to contact the Dornish or the Great Forest Orcs, but they could pick one of the other 3. The priests will make friendly contact with the Sept, and the prognosticators are confident that it will lead to a similar opportunity to negotiate with them as the one General Barakel has secured. The civil service note that if it happens, then the named priest who enacts the mandate will be the one granted the responsibility for deciding who uses the conjunction. Fear oppresses strength. The Highborn Assembly could remove the final miasma pillars from Zenith. Although the forces of Asenath, daughter of Esther, General of the Granite Pinner, are not directly engaged with a Druge army, they are fighting hard to uproot the poison they put down in Zenith. There are scores of tortured souls that have been left behind by the Druge to plague the territory. There are miasma pillars and vile monsters and beasts that the Druge ritualists have allowed to slip the leash and escape from the Spring Realm into the mortal world. Asenath and her soldiers have repeatedly engaged these forces throughout the season, guided by the light of virtue. There is no sign that Asenath's desire to inspire the subjugated tribes of the Barons has borne fruit. They are far away on the other side of Thorunin and unable to see what is taking place here, unless they have powerful magic to aid them. The Grendel are more likely to be aware of what has transpired, but it is impossible to tell if the Empire's triumph has moved them. What has happened is that the soldiers have redoubled their efforts to destroy the miasma pillars and lay to rest the tortured souls plaguing the territory. After the gate anomaly made it near impossible for the Empire to lay to rest the tortured souls, the Spire of the Everlasting Dusk, and the Spire of Twisting Shadows, the army has moved into both areas and has been able to deal with the problem. Aureli Major has been laid to rest, along with the tortured souls that troubled both areas, making the area much safer for Imperial citizens. It has created an opportunity for the Highborn Assembly to offer further aid and attempt to deal with one of the two remaining pillars. Imperial scouts have been able to confirm that a powerful ritual will destroy a miasma pillar, but so will a powerful consecration. It must be a particularly strong aura. It has to be strength 15 to be effective. As a result of the virtue demonstrated by the Highborn soldiers, their assembly could use the suitable mandate to destroy the last remaining miasma pillar in Zenith. Imperial heroes destroyed the miasma pillar in Lustri, the granite pillar destroyed the one in Praceres, and the Senate paid to tear down the one in Eteri. That leaves Clipian. Do not fear to act, be only shamed by inaction. We send, named priest, with 75 doses of Liao to urge highborn priests to destroy the pillar in Clipian to clear the Druge miasma from Zenith. Example Synod Mandate, Highborn Assembly. If this mandate were enacted, highborn priests would seek out the last remaining pillars in Clipian and use the Liao they have to destroy the pillars. The locations have been mapped out by Imperial military forces, so the Highborn can link up with Urazeni Sentinels and Sword Scholars to attack the last remaining Druge holdouts and drive them off long enough to take down the miasma completely. There is still one small complication. The mandate is explicitly urging the Highborn Assembly to come to Urizen's aid. It won't stop the Highborn from choosing a single nation to throw their support behind for the coming season. They have that option as well. However, this mandate will fail if the Urazeni Assembly chooses to pass the mandate rejecting all help from Highguard. It is not possible for Highborn priests to offer assistance to Urizen if that happens.